Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. If you've just joined us, we are studying the book of Mark and we are on week three. Week three of looking in the book of Mark, and we're basically looking at the being called out from the crowd, like what the cost of actually following Jesus, like what does it mean to, not basically not being just a fanboy, fangirl of Jesus, but really being a disciple of his. And one thing that was talked about was the idea of celebrity pastors. So let's just talk about that for just a little bit. If you could have dinner with any modern day Christian leader, and I'm thinking like more like famous, leaders, who would it be and why?
Katrina. No.
Oh.
Okay.
I wanted to say C.S. Lewis, but he's not here anymore.
That's okay. You can still say C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, because of his amazing books like Mere Christianity, Screwtape Letters, and his apologetics. Yeah, really want to meet him and see how he grew in his faith. But also like pastors like Vodi Balcom.
No idea who that is.
Yeah, he's more on the apologetic side in rather than the popular side.
Okay.
I admire him because I in my opinion he speaks the truth, and his sermons, his messages are not afraid to offend. But it's not like I intentionally like find something to attack you, but rather to speak the truth in love. And I like that. So in this day and age, to uphold your standard and principle. And if it's someone that's more local, his name is Charles Yu Daksun Boxy. So he has some very, very interesting sermons on male and female interactions.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you reminded me of a second person, but my first initial answer was Todd White.
Oh.
I think because at the time when I first found out about Todd White, I was still a bit young in my faith, and he was like at that time the prime example of a modern day talk the talk and then walk the walk. He was such an inspiration to me to actually like I was watching this video documentary that he featured in, right? And there was one point where like, keep in mind, like in Hong Kong, I feel it's not very common that you see people like preaching the gospel on the streets, right? And so here is Todd White in some other foreign country where he was on the street evangelizing, and all of a sudden there was like a street protest. And all of a sudden he joins the street protest and asks if he used the microphone, and he starts shouting, "We love Jesus, Jesus loves you," or like something like that. And I was like, yo, I don't even like that joke about like social anxiety fears this person. Yeah, at that point I was like, dude, this guy has like no fear, which just kind of like speaks about like how much he loves to bring the gospel to these people, which is that's why it's so inspiring. And then like the other one I was gonna talk about is this. I can't pronounce his surname. Cliff, and then K-N.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. He does
university
professor that does like talks and stuff like that, right?
With his students. I think that he's really
him and his son, right?
Yeah.
Can't pronounce his last name. It's a foreign last name.
Yeah.
K-N-E something. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say like some of the people I would want to meet would be people like Christine Kane and Jackie Hill Perry. They're just like women preachers who can communicate so well. And I think another one would be this lady, Pastor Cass Langdon. She like led the creative team, for a major church, and it was just pretty inspiring how she was able to do that so well. And I think the way that she breaks down like how she leads and how she's like different key players in the way she delegates, I'm like pretty impressive, I would say. So I think those are some people that I would want to have dinner and just pick their brains. And now like sometimes like with people and leaders, they tend to put them on a pedestal, and so then the whole concept of celebrity pastors, which is I guess something that a lot of people talk about these days, like when it comes to Christianity, like, oh, look at that, that's like Carl Lenz, that's like, or whoever it is, that's Justin Bieber's pastor, or blah blah blah, whatever, right? So yeah, let's talk a little bit about celebrity pastors. Like, what are some thoughts that come to your mind?
The phrase IDGAF.
Okay. All right.
I think I saw this from two sides. I saw this from like the celebrity side, and then the fan side, right?
Yeah.
I think from the celebrity side, the first line that comes to mind is that fame changes people, right? So I guess like to follow that up, I think it's when they have weak character that fame really gets to their head, right? So on the followers side, right? I think a similar modern day version of how the some people follow Jesus for their own personal benefit is like modern day like fake fans who approach like Hollywood celebrities and like wants their signature, not for like, you know, they want it for their own self, but they're doing it so that they can profit off it and then they sell it, you know.
Right.
So I think in the church, that's kind of very scary way to say it, is that like some people are there when they get picky of like what the pastor preaches. The moment it's something they don't like, they kind of just go like, oh, I'm gonna try out another church, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when I think celebrity pastors, I think maybe it's just like that group, that's a specific group that comes to my mind, which is basically people like Judah Smith, Stephen Furtick, like all those guys who seem to be like a clique, and I think you must have like heard of that, you know, that Instapage Preachers and Sneakers.
Oh, I can take a guess what it is about.
But basically, this person, we don't know who he is. I think he might reveal his identity. He basically takes a picture of a celebrity, of a pastor, and be like, his kicks are worth like $4,000 US. His shirt is from Gucci, that's worth like this amount of money, and then and so on. And basically, I think he started off as a troll, and then people then started to be like, yeah, these pastors, are they even like stewarding God's money well? Like spending all this money on like designer wear, and basically you're just hating on the pastors and everything. So I think what started as like a troll became like a big thing in the conversation of like celebrity pastors and the amount of money that they spend and stuff like that. And then I think some of them actually like argues like, well, technically some of these are given to them, so they don't have to pay for it. But yeah. So then I guess in my head, like sometimes celebrity pastors like, you know, are flashy and you know, basically yes, like have their own private jet or where it is. I think some also like pastors, maybe they don't intend to become celebrities, but they just happen, like people just elevate them. And I think one person that comes to my, again, he's not like people elevating him or anything like that. One person that comes to mind, I've seen him like, you know, change over the years, not in a bad way, don't get me wrong, is Judah Smith. Again, I don't know if you know him, but basically he's this excellent communicator, and also known as like, well, I think one of the things was like he was like, you know, Justin Bieber's like pastor or whatever it is. That's what they were saying. But so anyways, when I first knew of him, he was one of the pastors in Seattle of a church called City Church. And it was I would say it was a big church in Seattle. It was more like his dad's church, but he was serving there. And then eventually, like he was a college pastor then. And I remember just him being, like I said, an excellent communicator. Like I remember a lot of his sermons. And then eventually he evolved and he moved into LA, and then he like runs his own church now and so on. And it's just like, and then he's kind of like, yes, very, I guess, in terms of like, yes, Christian celebrity, he's up there. Like he's spoken at Hillsong conferences. He's done like a whole bunch of different things with different churches. But then, like, I think for me, he doesn't seem like a very flashy kind of guy, but I think he just seems really genuine and yeah, faithful to the Lord. But it just so happens that his interaction also does involve celebrities. So I guess like we know when we think celebrity pastors, people think like, oh, these pastors have have celebrities at their church. Right? So
when you talk about excellent communicator, I was just thinking, to my understanding, that God used to like to use people who are weak, right?
Yeah.
So like Moses didn't know how to lead or stir up the crowd, and God used Aaron to help him.
Yeah.
And then Joseph was like the youngest brother.
Yeah.
And also the smallest tribe of the 12, and then you know how David was a small guy and he used the sling to kill Goliath, and I was just thinking how in modern day we kind of celebrate all the best people, best teaching, best tech, best production and whatever. I'm just thinking how do we understand that?
Good question. Well, you never, I mean, we celebrate the strongest best thing, but you never know that like they may not necessarily be open with their weakness, right? It's not like we walked with them and everything. I mean, people may see that one side of Patrina now, but they don't know like the pain and the trials that I go through to, you know, I guess get to where I'm at, you know. So likewise, I think it's because there's such a public platform that, you know, we see just as much as we see their strengths and, you know, the strengths, we also can see their weaknesses. Like basically, again, going back to like all the other, you know, leaders who, you know, like they've done so well, but also like once they fall, like, oh wow, they've fallen so hard.
It's like seeing Joseph at being the second highest, but we didn't see him being sold by his brothers. So
you mean like
that's
in
what
modern
you're
day?
saying, yeah.
Yeah, because like I think it's all like a process, right? Like I think, like for example, again going back to the whole Judah Smith. I mean, we all don't know his journey. Like I said, I've known him since he was a college pastor. Seeing him as a college pastor then, right? His platform was then, but I think, you know, being faithful with the platform that you've given, and I guess God has just grown him and brought him to different places, different groups of people, and so on and so forth. So like with Joseph, he was faithful with the platform that he had, and then so it basically, you know, God has just brought him and I guess what was the Bible verse, like what you meant for evil, you meant for good. Like that's what Joseph was saying to his brothers. So again, there's all these like different, I think, stories behind that we don't see. Which is fair because like everyone's life is not going to be on blast, you know, for you to, you know, decipher and be like, oh, because of this and that's why that happened, you know, the kind of thing. So yeah, I get what you mean about like, yeah, we look at those speakers and we celebrate like, yeah, their strengths and, you know, and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm sure there's also a lot of speakers, people behind the scenes that we don't know. Which I'm sure, like, let's say for example, if I have a chance to get to know them, like, you know, then I also probably admire them too. I guess like right now we're just talking about the leaders that we see, like, you know, on stage.
I feel like, you know, this culture of like, let's say Hollywood, right? I feel like people like to praise the likable celebrities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, look how much adoration a actor or actress gets, right? And compare them to like someone who won like a Nobel Prize. Like, if you ask me to name one Nobel Prize winner, I probably can't. I probably know their name, I just don't know they won something. Right? Like you see, they've actually made a huge impact, right? But then they're not very well known. And I think that's kind of the same thing with this in our church, that like we said at the beginning, it's not really the pastor's choice. It's kind of the people, how the people react.
Some of them, I would say.
Some, yes, right. Correct emphasis. My bad.
Yeah.
Because like I know so many pastors like who are so like raw, genuine, and down to earth, and I'm like, this guy is like the ideal leader, and he just leads like this small church, like a church of like what, under 40, 30 maybe, I don't know, but like yeah, like so he. Sometimes I would say like, oh, I wish this guy deserved more praise, but and so yeah, it is what it is. We can't really control how people want to like popularize.
Yeah, because like for example, like right, Jesus, he was kind of a celebrity pastor during his time, right? He didn't be like, look at me, I'm a celebrity, like worship me as you will. People just elevated
like, share,
him.
Follow.
Yeah, it's not like here's a parable, take it and tell the masses, right? I mean, like he was, again, like what Pastor was saying, that he was a celebrity pastor during his time. People were following him and chasing him. Like he didn't ask for it. He just basically did his thing, like followed the will of God, heard his voice, healed people, delivered, you know, people from demons, and then boom, celebrity pastor right there in the making. And so like maybe we can like talk, well, we've already talked about how, like, you know, what are some signs that, you know, the pastor or leader has become more of a celebrity and true shepherd. I think it's like, you know, when they're pursuing, like, I guess, oh, I'm a Gucci ambassador, you know, I'm like, you know, all this, like, you know, branded, like, you know, I'm wearing Yeezys, whatever it is, right? And they're like, you know, pursuing that, then they're definitely like, they're definitely not true shepherds, more of like for the fame, right? And I think we've also seen the fame and the downfall of certain, you know, pastors. And I think one of the famous ones, it will be Carl Lentz. I don't know if you saw the documentary of it. Basically, it's like the focus wasn't even on him. It was basically on like all the stuff that went down around him, I guess, like leadership and no covering or whatever it is, and also him battling his own demons. And I think all that fame, all the spotlight on him just basically highlighted I guess his issues, and then it basically one thing led to another, right? So all the spotlight was on Jesus, but then Jesus, it wasn't about the fame. It wasn't about like, oh, look at me, look at all the powerful things I can do. It's always pointing people to God the Father. And even he wanted to keep his identity a secret for the longest time. But people was like, oh, you're the Son of God.
Shut up.
Oh my gosh. He's like, stop talking.
Stop.
So so we look at the crowd. They followed Jesus for what he could do for them, while the disciples followed Jesus for who he was. So for us, like, how can we check our own motivations, for following Jesus? And maybe something to think about is like, what was our own motivations coming to and following Jesus in the first place? Like, for example, like, again, going back to modern day context, right? Like some people might go to a certain church because of like, oh, the worship, or this pastor, but like, so, I mean, there are gonna be people who go to attend specific churches because of the pastor, because of the worship. So for us, what is our motivation when it comes to following Jesus?
I think to follow on that point where you said like how people like choose a church because of like the pastor or the worship. I think what comes to mind is that like some people prioritize the messenger and not the message. Yeah. Right? And I think again that's why I said just now about like church hopping. How they kind of do it till they like it. And I think that's the issue, because I think that's what was the example of the people who were only following Jesus to benefit themselves. So I think a way to like avoid that is, I feel like to me, having a genuine relationship with God, because I feel when you have such a genuine relationship, it's out of love that you don't want to do anything wrong. Like I was in a place where I kind of took God for granted for a very long time. And so then now that I have a proper relationship, I don't want to do that, like I know it's wrong. And so like that itself will be my motivation to be like, hey, don't do him dirty like that.
I mean, what you talk about, the following the pastor or following the worship, to me that's more like why you come to church rather than why come to Jesus. I always thought going to Jesus does not necessarily mean going to church. It's beneficial, but it's not the main point, I guess. For me, the reason why I wanted to follow Jesus is because I realize his sovereignty. Like I realize his creation of the world, and I recognize and acknowledge sin and death and all those things.
Well, I think I've shared this before, but my motivations for following Jesus from the very beginning was purely what I could get out of him, which was, like I said, fire insurance, because I don't want to burn in hell, so I'm going to follow Jesus. Not going to lie, straight up. That's why I chose to follow Jesus.
I don't want to get judged too.
Yeah, like I don't want to burning forever and ever.
Gnashing of teeth.
Yeah, it's just a little bit painful. So no, thank you. That's exactly that's exactly why I followed Jesus. Also, I didn't want to deal with the wrath of my parents of like, don't go to church, So it's a lot of like a pain avoidance, which is why I followed Jesus initially. So I was like the great crowd. So one might say like, wow, that's not a very good motivation to follow Jesus. Like, what's the point then of following Jesus if all you're in it is just to avoid pain? Yes, that's the first step in. But I think it's, again, over the years of learning to know who he is, experiencing, breakthroughs, miracles, and so on and so forth. Then I realized, it is worth it to have a relationship with him as I grow in intimacy with him. The importance of community, the importance of like what it looks like to live your life, knowing your identity in Christ, and so on and so forth. So it is truly a journey from going from being part of the crowd to being a disciple of him. And I still think it's like still a daily thing where I'm trying to like learn that and figure it out. But yeah, definitely a process. And again, like when Jesus came, he wasn't like, hey everyone, if you follow me, you will be blessed for the rest of your days. Like he didn't promise blessings. And he also, I think he warned a lot about like self-denial. He warned about suffering and taking up our cross. So why do you think that this specific aspect of discipleship is often overlooked?
I mean, we can all admit we like free stuff.
I love free stuff.
Right? So I think, like, yeah, lots of people would like the free stuff, but sometimes, well, okay, for me personally, I like free stuff, but when I have to do something for the free stuff, not necessarily paying. Like, for example, restaurants that say, hey, if you like our page and share this post, we'll give you like an additional item or free dish.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know. I'll
Again,
pass.
it depends. If it's like a free, like say crab curry, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll share the post on my story. I'll like it. It's a free crab. I guess sometimes it's like cost versus reward, right? If the cost is like little and the reward is great, then why not? And then like some people, they're like, oh, follow us and get like a free soda. I'm like, okay, then I follow, then I unfollow.
Exactly.
Anyways, carry on.
No, that was basically my whole analogy of like, yeah, I think sometimes that's why when Jesus is preaching all these stuff that the people like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm all in. But the moment like he preaches something that is necessary to hear and convicts them, they're like, yeah, maybe not for me.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, we want an easy life, and I want an easy life.
We all want an easy life.
Yeah.
Like, what was it something that one of our friends says, like, the Lord's servant is precious, and so I am very precious too, and sometimes it's a little bit hard.
Yeah. I mean, but also I feel like we want to present all the positive things, right? As marketing strategy or whatever. We want to downplay the weaknesses, and we want to like emphasize the strengths. So we always talk about, oh, you're gonna get eternal life, you're gonna get blessings, you're forgiven, and blah blah blah. But we don't want to say the other things.
Yeah. So it's just like there is a balance, because sin is the important thing. We talked about it. Sin is important. We can't ignore it. And if they don't say yes to Jesus, then.
Which is probably why the prosperity gospel is so
popular,
so quickly accepted,
so prosperous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it basically, it's not a good selling point. Like, hey, by the way, if you follow Jesus, it ain't gonna be easy. So again, if like say someone asks you to explain what it really means to follow Jesus, what would you say in one sentence? I would say, it ain't easy, bro. But yeah, what would you guys say?
What I would say is that like you no longer become first priority, meaning like you become, I think all your needs become secondary, and Jesus takes first. So even though your needs are not first, you still reap like a lot of rewards, I feel.
Yeah. Well, I would say what Pastor has said, you focus on the prize you get from God, but you forgot the price, the cost that you need to pay for this. Yeah, so deny oneself and take up the cross.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is to follow Jesus. So yeah, the bottom line is it ain't easy. It requires a price to pay, which is taking up your cross. It requires making some unpopular decisions that people may be like, oh, why would you even do that? Like, really? Do you really want to do that for the rest of your life? But at the end of the day, I think there is eternal glory in store, and I think it is worthwhile to live our lives for Jesus. We may not see what we want to see happen in our lifetime, but we know that at the end of it is worth it. So it ain't easy, but it's worth it. I guess that's what I would say. In one sentence about following Jesus.
Yeah.
Worth it to pick up that cross. It's heavy, but it's worth it. All right. And on that note, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.